Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. I am Bryson Carver. NBA playoffs start tomorrow. Yes, it has been a weird season, a shortened season, a 72-game rather than an 82-game season. But yes, the NBA playoffs start tomorrow. We got one more play-in game tonight featuring my Golden State Warriors hosting the Memphis Grizzlies. Winner is the 8th seed and plays the Utah Jazz. The loser, bye-bye, season over. So it's going to be an exciting game tonight at 9 Eastern on ESPN. Lots to talk about in the show today. Washington surprised me, not just by beating Indiana, but crushing Indiana after they basically pulled on Indiana what Indiana did to Charlotte on Tuesday night. So that caught me off guard. So I'm going to get into Russell Westbrook specifically in just a second here, but I'm also going to discuss the NBA's ratings. And I talked about the NBA's ratings last year, about a month before the season started. It was about a month after, because it was a very short off season, a month after the finals were over and about a month before the season started. So right kind of sandwich in between. I talked about the ratings are going to be down at the beginning of the season, but come playoff time, they're going to be back up. And what do you know? That's exactly what happened. And I'll dive deep into that in just a second. Also, Tim Tebow has the highest selling items, top 5 highest selling items on NFLshop.com. Yet another reason why this is a circus and a publicity stunt on the part of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'll get into that later on the show. And at the end of the show, looking forward to this, making my first round NBA playoff picks. I got some upsets. I got some series I think are going to go longer than people anticipate and shorter than some people anticipate. So looking forward to doing that. But first, let me talk about Russell Westbrook a little bit because the Wizards won last night. Surprised me. Not that they won. I mean, certainly it wasn't it was a go either way type of basketball game going in, at least we thought. But that was just a embarrassing performance by the Pacers, considering what they had just done to Charlotte 2 nights prior, and considering what Boston and Jason Tatum specifically had just done to Washington 2 nights prior to put them in an elimination game. But at home, Russell Westbrook was excellent. Bradley Beal shot over 50% for the field, gave you 25 on that bum hamstring. So he looks to be healthier than he was on Tuesday, so that's great for the Wizards. But as far as Westbrook, this is an elimination game. It's the first elimination game that he has won in quite some time. And I think, listen, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, Washington's going to upset Philly in the first round. I don't anticipate that happening. But Russ in the playoffs, and we've seen it time and time again, even in the years where, say, he's averaged a triple-double, or let's even look at 2019, the last time he was arguably the best player on the team, right? Because last year in Houston, he was obviously great, but James Harden was their best player. No question about it. The last time he was the best player in Oklahoma City, he was getting Paul George involved, which got Paul George into the MVP discussion. Russ once again averaged a triple-double. Late in that season, he had a game where he had 20 points, 20 rebounds, and 20 assists, which has only been done by Wilt Chamberlain. And then we get to the playoffs in 2019, and it's not just 2019, but it seems like every year he's in the playoffs. And he goes back to his bad old habits, shooting too many threes, inefficient, not getting other guys involved, taking all the big shots instead of deferring to the better shooters. And it's cost him in multiple playoff games and playoff series. Last night is a blueprint for why Russell Westbrook can succeed in the playoffs if he follows exactly what he did last night. Okay? So you look at a stat line. Near triple-double once again. 18 points, 15 rebounds. 18 points, 15 assists, and 8 rebounds. Now, I've talked about Russell Westbrook on this show. He's a good scorer. The only way he gets his points, he's got to shoot a lot of shots. He is a volume shooter. He's not going to be efficient if he's going to go off for 30, 40, even 50 at times points. He's going to be inefficient at times. He's a volume shooter, and he's not a good shooter. But when he's a distributor, and keep in mind, think about all the offensive juggernauts that Russell Westbrook has had on his team. Kevin Durant, James Harden. He's had Paul George. This year, he had Carmelo Anthony at one point for 1 year. And then this year, he's got Bradley Beal second in the NBA in scoring. Like, he's had some really, really good scores to distribute to, and it's been him who's been taking the last shots of the playoffs, and I think that's the biggest reason that KD left OKC to join Golden State in 2016, because he's like, obviously he's the better player, but I'm the much better shooter. especially in clutch situations. And it's you who's taking the last shots, the big shots in these big playoff games. And I'm just kind of getting tired of it. Let's go to a team where they recognize, hey, Kevin, yeah, you're the best player. You're going to take the big shots in these games. But when Russ is a distributor first, he's dangerous. Especially look at Bradley Beal. Shot over 50% for the field, over 50% from three, gave you 25 again on a hamstring that is clearly not 100%. Russ was, finished just under 50% of the field, only shot 1 3. I'd be okay if he didn't shoot any threes because he's just not a good three-point shooter. But if he can follow this mold, where he's not taking all the shots, launching a bunch of threes, making 1 for 5, 1 for 6, or 0 for 7 at times, okay, you may have something. Because we have seen it year in and year out from Russell Westbrook is his basketball IQ in the playoffs. It's non-existent. LeBron James, once we get to playoff time, slow it down. Get good shots. Whether I got to be the scorer, whether I got to distribute to the shooters, LeBron recognizes, when it's time to give up the shot to a better shooter, or, hey, this is my night. I'm going to be, the primary scorer. Like LeBron's great like that, right? So with Russ, it's like he's such a great passer of the basketball. Seriously, I don't think he gets enough credit for this. He's one of the 3 best passers in the NBA. He's excellent. And so when you have him taking 25 shots or 30 shots, I think he took like 40 shots in an elimination game in Utah a few years back. It's like, that's not your game. He's going away from what makes him great. And he did it the other night against Boston. So with this formula, only took 13 shots. I'm fine with him taking more than 13. But when we're getting up there to 25, 30, 35, it's like, whoa. This is not your game. You're going away from what makes you a great basketball player. And so listen, he'll have triple doubles against Philadelphia, although it'll be tough because Philadelphia is such a large team. Joel Embiid, 6'10" point guard, Ben Simmons, defensive player of the year candidate, Ben Simmons. So when I look at Russ and I'm a Russ fan or a Wizards fan, this is a good sign. This is a good sign. Like, hey, maybe he's seen the light. Maybe he's like, okay, this is what's successful. This is what's going to win my team games. Again, I know my predictions for the playoffs are later in the show. I don't anticipate Washington beating Philly. I'm sorry, I just don't. But you can push Philly a little bit if this is the Westbrook you get. You can. He's a great player. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's the most athletic point guard ever. He's a former MVP. He's obviously made multiple All-Star games. He's a great player. He proved that this year. He's still a great basketball player. He's still got Bradley Beal. Is he 100%? No. But can he still score? Yeah, he gave you 25 last night. So that's got to be the key for the Washington Wizards. They need to run through Westbrook. No doubt. He's their best player. But he can't be taking all the shots. Last night he didn't. 15 assists. That's his game. That's what makes him great. It is. And so I don't know when game one is. I think they either Saturday or Sunday. They'll obviously play this weekend. They can push Philly. They won't beat Philly. They're not. Philly's too great of a team. They got too many great players who've had a great season. Doc Rivers has done an excellent job in Philadelphia, making the adjustments that Brett Brown was never capable of doing there. Philly's going to win the series. But if this is the Russ we get, where he is passer first, he's a great passer. He's not a great shooter. He's not a good shooter. He's not even a good shooter, okay? When he's distributing the ball, when he's getting the big guys involved. They had the guy coming off the bench, Daniel Gafford. You kidding me? 15 points, 13 rebounds. I think he had 5 blocks too. He was excellent coming off the bench. Feed the big man, feed Bradley Beal, one of the best scorers in basketball, and you can give Philly a fight. You can. But if he reverts back to old playoff Russell Westbrook, it's probably a sweep. Best case scenario, 5 games. Best case, if Philly just screws up one of the games, So if this is what we're getting from Russ in the playoffs, this can be sustainable, certainly over the next few years. Because look, his games rely on athleticism. He won't age as well as, say, a Steph Curry or a Chris Paul or even a James Harden, because their games are predicated on shooting, leadership, those sort of intangible and tangible things. Whereas Russ, I've called him many times this show the most athletic point guard of all time. So you can win with that. But if he's distributor first, here we go. If he's not, if he's taking a bunch of shots, I don't know. We got a comment here from Barry Grant Jr. Shout out to him from the All Even podcast. He says, we can count on Russ doing like that. We can count on Russ doing that like we can count on Waldo George to be clutch in the playoffs. I don't expect anything from Paul George in the playoffs because I've seen that movie too many times. But if he has truly learned, because listen, this was a playoff game. This was a playoff game. You win, bam, you're in the playoffs. You lose, you're going home. And so obviously this was a do or die game. Washington completely outplayed Indiana from jump to the final buzzer. So is this Russ maturing as a player? We'll see. Maybe I'll come on this show a week from today, and it'll be same old playoff Russ, taking too many shots, taking too many threes, not getting other guys involved, playing 1,000 miles an hour when he needs to slow it down. Maybe that's what I'm going to be talking about in a week, but only time will tell. I do trust Russ, though, in the playoffs more than I do Paul George. I will say that because, Pandemic P, man, he is bad in the playoffs. He doesn't just underperform, he is bad. So let me go to this. I saw this right after I got off the show yesterday, and I posted it on Instagram, that the game between the Warriors and the Lakers, I talked about it yesterday, as gut-wrenching a loss as it was for me as a Warriors fan. It was like, man, you want to talk about a great basketball game start to finish. You're talking about, in my view, the best player in the world. I'm going to go and say it, right? Steph Curry is the best player in the world right now. He surpassed, I believe, Kevin Durant. Great as LeBron is, he's still, in my view, top 3. I ain't never betting against LeBron James. I'd be an idiot to do that. But he's clearly limited. He's 36 years old. He's in his 18th year. KD has had injury problems. I think it's safe to say right now, Steph Curry's the best player on planet Earth right now. So you had Steph, LeBron, the modern day, as I've called it on the show before, Magic and Larry. It's not as great as that rivalry was, but it's up there. As far as one-on-one player rivalries, that's up there with Wilt and Bill Russell, and obviously I just mentioned Larry and Magic. So a classic game. It felt like a finals game a little bit. It really did. So it was fun. Came down to the last minute. LeBron made an incredible 30-foot three that proved to be the difference. But I saw this and I kind of chuckled a little bit because I'm like, well, I'm not surprised, but for some reason there seems to be this narrative, and I don't know, maybe it's the social media era. I don't know. I'm sure this has happened before social media was even a thing, but a lot of times narratives are pushed, and when you actually examine the facts, it's like, that's not true. That's not true at all. This is one of them. Oh, the NBA, they got too political. They hurt the ratings. And I just sat back and laughed. Because we saw last year, 2016, 2012, and you just go back from there. Every election year, NBA ratings and sports ratings, for that matter, always go down. It has nothing to do with players getting over political or not political enough or whatever your complaint may be. Okay, you've got 2 interesting candidates last year. You had a hotly contested election. You had a lot of stuff, a lot of news. I mean, we all saw what were the highest rated networks on television the month leading up to Election Day: CNN, Fox News, NBC, ABC. That's how it works all the time. The networks that cover the election, their ratings are going to be up because guess what? We want to find out who the president of the United States is going to be for the next 4 years. And obviously the elections after that. President isn't the only important election that we got. So that's what I'm saying. So sports ratings, just look at the numbers. They're right there on the internet for you to Google. They always go down. Election's over now. Lakers-Warriors play-in game last night, Wednesday night, drew an average audience of this wasn't even the high. This was the average audience, 5.6 million. It was the most watched NBA game on ESPN since the 2019 Western Conference Finals. And it was also the highest rated, if you will, television show on any network at any time of the day of any demographic on Wednesday. But the NBA is dying. Come on. Listen, when you've got greatness, when you've got the greatest shooter ever in Steph Curry, when you got a guy who's striving to be the greatest player ever in LeBron James, when you got the defending champion, LA Lakers, when you got a Warriors team that's won 3 of the last 6 championships, people are going to watch. Whether you like it or not, people are going to watch. So this narrative that seems to be pushed all the time, let's go back to 2016. It was right in the middle of the Colin Kaepernick thing. It was like, oh, Kaepernick's hurting the NFL ratings. No, the election's hurting the ratings. And what happened? 2 months, or it's actually 3 months after the election, Super Bowl 51. It was the infamous Tom Brady comeback from 28-3 down, highest rated Super Bowl of all time. But I thought the ratings were hurt. No, the election hurts ratings. It does every 4 years. It's the same old cycle. And for some reason or another, it's the same old stuff. Oh, politics are hurting. The guy's getting too political. It's hurting NBA and the NFL. No, it's not. That's just simply not true. Okay. So we got the number 5.6 million people. And that was a playing game, by the way. This isn't even an actual playoff game yet. Okay. We got the finals in 2 months. If we get a Lakers Brooklyn finals, can you imagine the number for that? You got LeBron and KD in the finals for I think the fourth time in the last decade. You got a stacked Brooklyn team going against the defending champs. I mean, you kidding me? Can you Brooklyn and LA? It's just like the old rest in peace. Today would have been his birthday. It's just like the Notorious B.I.G. versus Tupac, right? Brooklyn, LA. Can you imagine the ratings if we get a Brooklyn, LA finals? So that's what I'm saying. Politics never hurt the NBA ratings. It never has. It never will. If you have greatness on television, people are always going to watch. So it was a great basketball game. People clearly loved it. Again, that was an average. I think the number was around, at one point, like 6.2. By the way, this game, just to push this even more, this game aired at 10 p.m. Eastern. So part of the country was asleep while this game was going on. Right? I mean, listen, ain't no way I was going to miss this one. But part of the country was asleep because East Coast is like, hey, some people got to get up early for work. Totally understand that, right? So some people didn't even get to watch it live, and it still drew this rating. Goes to show you how listen, if you got a great basketball game, if you got 2 of the greatest players of all time on the floor in LeBron James and Steph Curry, people are always going to watch. It doesn't matter what's going on. People are always going to watch. And again, that was a play-in game. It wasn't even a playoff game. It was a play-in game. So, yeah, there you go. So I'm going to get into my playoff predictions later on the show. Really looking forward to that. My playoff predictions last year were kind of inconsistent. I did a couple of bets with my buddy Philip. He ended up beating me in the overall bracket, so I'll have to get revenge this year on the predictions. But I'm going to talk only an NFL topic of the day. We saw that according to Adam Schefter's, not even according to Schefter, he just happened to call attention to this, if you will. Tim Tebow was signed the other day by the Jacksonville Jaguars, 1-year deal. I don't think any of the money is guaranteed. I think it's about $928K. That's a little contract in the NFL. But Tim Tebow's a tight end now, as we all know. Obviously, I talked about it. Everybody's talked about it on the show, on their respective shows or on social media. And currently on the NFL Shop, which is, I think, partnered with Fanatics. Like, that's the number one place. Anytime I buy any kind of sports gear, I go to Fanatics, right? I go to NFL Shop. That's the best place to get any kind of NFL, jerseys or footballs or whatever you want to get, man. NFL Shop is the place to go. They're not sponsoring me, by the way. I'm just putting that out there. So Tim Tebow, currently in the NFL Shop, has the top 5 highest selling products on the market. I saw the top 3. The third was a Tim Tebow Jaguars t-shirt. I guess he wears number 85 now because he's a tight end. Number 2 was a women's Tim Tebow Jacksonville Jaguars jersey, and number 1 was a men's Tim Tebow jersey. So Tebow Mania, at least on NFL Shop, is back. This goes to show you once again that this has nothing to do with football and everything to do with fame, celebrity. And this is why I don't criticize. I'm very consistent on this. I don't criticize Tebow for taking the opportunity. If Urban Meyer calls you, say, "Hey, we're gonna try you out at tight end," we're going to give you an opportunity to be on the team. Take it. I mean, I'd be critical of Tebow if he didn't take it. And so my only criticism of Tim is that he didn't try this earlier. And I don't even think tight end is the best position for him. I think he's better as just an H-back. Put him at running back, sometimes fullback. My biggest concern, though, for Tebow as a tight end is not necessarily pass catching; it's blocking. Okay, that could be a problem, but we'll see how that plays out in training camp in a few months and in the preseason. Looks like we're going to get a preseason this year. The NFL put out a schedule, but this goes back to what I said about Urban Meyer. I've got no problem at all with Tim Tebow being a part of the Jaguars organization, just not as a player. Because what he's doing, he's taking a spot from a guy who's more qualified to be in that position. Okay? Again, not criticizing Tim. I'm criticizing Urban. I'm giving him majority of the blame. And I am putting some criticism as well on the play of the owner, Shad Khan. Because you just took Trevor Lawrence number one. Everybody wants to see Trevor Lawrence. I don't know what the NFL schedule makers were doing. They only gave Jacksonville one primetime game. I thought they get at least two. Because listen, people want to see Trevor Lawrence. I think they get like one Monday night football game against Cincinnati. Or Monday night game or Thursday night game. They got a primetime game against the Bengals, so we'll get a Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence game. So we saw with, we knew 2 years ago, Trevor Lawrence is going to be the number one pick in 2021. We knew back in 2019, after that national championship game, we didn't know that at the time who the number one pick in 2019 would be. We didn't know it'd be Kyler Murray. We certainly, a year from that point, didn't know Joe Burrow would just explode in 2019, win the Heisman, win the national championship with LSU, and end up being the number one pick. But we knew darn well who the number one pick was going to be in 2021. Because it's like, come on, like, what quarterback was going to come in and outperform Trevor Lawrence in college? No quarterback was. Certainly you had, at least coming out in 2021, certainly. Justin Fields, like a lot, I think he's going to do well in Chicago. He doesn't seem to be too excited to be in Chicago, but I would tell him, listen, this is a good system for you. Mitch Trubisky got to the playoffs. Mitch Trubisky won a division. He's actually gotten to the playoffs twice in 3 years. And Justin Fields has way more upside than Mitch Trubisky. And so I've been a big defender of Matt Nagy on the show. I think he's an excellent offensive coach. So, I think this could really be something special if Justin Fields is inserted into the lineup at some point this season. Okay, you see the other quarterbacks. Okay, I think Trey Lance could be the second best quarterback in the draft. I love Trey Lance, not as much as Trevor Lawrence. Okay, people are crazy about Mac Jones. Don't get it. He darn sure ain't going to be as good as Trevor Lawrence. Who else we got? Who was the other quarterback? Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson also kind of came out of nowhere. I don't know how he was the number 2 overall pick over Lance or Fields. That's unknown to me, but it is what it is. He's a New York Jet now. But when I look at Jacksonville, I'm like, you've already got a lot of media draw because you've got a guy in Trevor Lawrence who's been hyped up since high school, right? Like he's like, oh, this kid is going to be special. Like he was a prodigy. I mean, there's no other way around it. He was a child prodigy, if you will, similar to Peyton Manning, or we even see Peyton's nephew, Arch Manning, who I think is Cooper Manning, the oldest brother. His son, Arch Manning, looks like, oh my man, this kid could be a prodigy. This kid could be, maybe in the long run end up being better than at least Eli possibly. So maybe I'm getting too ahead of myself, but this kid can play. But that's another topic for another show years down the road, because he is still in high school. But the bottom line is I didn't get it. If Jacksonville, let's say Jacksonville finished 5-11 last year, Gardner Minshew, one of a few games, 5-11, 6-10, whatever. They take a corner, a linebacker in the draft, and nobody gives two craps about the Jacksonville Jaguars. At that point, I don't love it, but I kind of get it. It's like, okay, you got to put butts in seats in Jacksonville, at least in the preseason. Tim Tebow will bring some kind of interest to the Jaguars. You have Trevor Lawrence, okay? The media is going to be more concerned about the fifth-string tight end than the franchise quarterback that you just took with the number 1 pick. Is that a formula for good press? Because listen, we all know eventually, and I'm not saying the Jacksonville media isn't the New York media or the LA media or the Philadelphia media, certainly, or Boston, but they're not just gonna, they're not. If Trevor Lawrence plays bad, they're gonna call like it is. I would assume if they're good at their jobs, they'll if Trevor Lawrence is a bad game, they'll say, "Hey, kid didn't play well." And listen, he's a rookie. He'll have games where he just not his day. So the signing of Tebow, it still doesn't make sense to me because he doesn't make your team better. He brings unneeded press. People were already going to be interested in the Jaguars this year. Okay? You were already going to get more people going to games this year because people want to see this guy. This is Trevor flipping Lawrence, right? Like, people want to see this kid at Clemson because, he was in so many blowouts. It's like, man, we want to see him against the best competition, which, of course, the NFL is. Like, we want to see this kid play. And you bring a guy who has not played a regular season game in 9 years. 9 years, okay? And the only time he's ever lined up at tight end, it was with the Jets. And it was a short play. It was like a 3rd down and 2. And Mark Sanchez, the quarterback at the time of the Jets, threw a pass to Tebow and it hit him in the helmet. And I'm supposed to be excited about that signing if I'm the Jaguars. If Tim, and like I said, I love Tim as a guy. I really do. I mean, he is as good of a human being as you will ever find anywhere. He really is. But this is about football, right? It is a meritocracy, right? This is, you get what you earn. You get what you work for. And Tim wasn't even good at his number 1 position, quarterback. How on earth am I supposed to believe that after not playing a game in 9 years, that he's supposed to be a great tight end? Well, tight end was a position of need. So he went and got Tim Tebow. Just take a 5th rounder out of Wisconsin. I don't know. He's more qualified than Tim is. I still don't get it. If he had been hired as like an offensive assistant, no problem. I mean, people aren't going to be that interested in Tim if he's like the offensive. There'll be obviously some press behind it, like, hey, Tim Tebow, he's in Jacksonville as the offensive assistant. But it'll kind of go away after a while, at least we think. It's not going to be the number 1 story in Jacksonville. Like, I actually think that would have been a pretty good idea by Urban. Okay, you hire him. He's an offensive assistant. He knows Urban's system. Okay, I kind of like it. But as a tight end, that's where you went. And again, this is the second. This is like strike 2. And Urban Meyer's not coaching NFL down yet. And this is like strike 2. This is another bad hire. This isn't as bad as the one I'm about to mention, but he hires the former strength and conditioning coach from Iowa who had multiple allegations of abuse by players. And that was the guy you hired to be your your strength and conditioning coach? Of all the guys, the guy who has the label abusive, you hired him? Not somebody else who, not someone who doesn't have baggage. And Urban certainly had plenty of controversies back at Ohio State, back at Florida. It just seems like another publicity stunt. It seems like another, and listen, Urban's a great coach. There's no question about it, but it seems like another questionable move. Like, what are the motives behind this? Is this, I get it, given your guy, obviously him and Tim have been close ever since he was at Florida, but he's not qualified to be a tight end. And listen, we've talked about head coaches in the NFL, and I've beat this table over and over. Like, why are not more coaches of color getting opportunities in the show, or not the show, in the NFL as head coaches? And so I think we need to keep that same energy. It's like, and this doesn't have to do with race, obviously. It doesn't. But it's like Tim isn't qualified. As great of a guy as he is, and as great, one of the greatest college football players we've ever seen, he's not an NFL tight end. Like, how am I supposed to believe that he's because all it's going to be is a publicity stunt. He'll get cut in September before the season starts, and it's just going to be a big, flop, if you will. So it's, we see he's got some of the highest selling jerseys in the league. Good for him. He's got to probably make more money on this than he will with the Jaguars. Who knows? But I don't get it. So here we go. Last topic. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. NBA playoff predictions. The first round tips off tomorrow. I believe the first game is at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific time between the Miami Heat and the Milwaukee Bucks. Obviously, I'll predict that series in just a second. This is as interesting a first round as I've ever seen. And I'm not, maybe it's me over-exaggerating because it's a normal feeling playoffs now because last year it was in the bubble and it was weird tip-off times because all the games were in the same spot in Disney World. But going into this, it's like, wow, like we got some really, really interesting playoff series. So without further ado, let me just go and jump into it. Enough jabbering. Let's jump into it. So we're going to start in the Eastern Conference with the 1 seed Philadelphia 76ers against the 8 seed Washington Wizards. Again, I talked about Westbrook to start the show. If he is primarily a distributor, which he's one of the best in the NBA at, Washington can fight. They can give Philly a shot. They can give Philly trouble, maybe push it to 6 games. But Philly's been the best team in the East all year. Joel Embiid, they just announced last night, he's top 3. He's a top 3 finalist for the MVP. Had an amazing season, averaged 29 points, 11 rebounds. Ben Simmons is probably the front runner for Defensive Player of the Year. You got guys like Tobias Harris, who I believe should have been an All-Star. Doc Rivers is much more equipped for big playoff games than Brett Brown was. This is a Philadelphia team that's clearly a championship contender. Washington just isn't. I think the series is over in 5 games. I think Washington gets one at home, maybe in game 3. Makes the series somewhat compelling, but Philly will win the next 2. They'll take care of home court fairly easily first 2 games. I think Washington wins game 3. Philly wins a close game 4 and then closes them out at home in a blowout in game 5. So Philly moves on to the second round. Next up, I got the 7 seed Boston Celtics taking on the 2 seed Brooklyn Nets. This has kind of been a storyline that's gone under the radar. I can't believe I haven't really heard anybody talk about it, but Kyrie Irving gets his former team. That's interesting. Jason Tatum had yet another high-scoring night the other night against the Washington Wizards. Gave Washington 50 points. He's had a lot of big scoring games. He had a 60-point game and a big comeback, I think, against the Spurs. This has obviously been a disappointing season for the Boston Celtics. Jaylen Brown's out for the year with a wrist injury. Obviously, I don't think they would win anyway if he were healthy, but he would certainly make that interesting. They had to play in the play-in, which, after getting to the Eastern Conference Finals 2 of the last 3 years, you'd think that maybe they take that next step. Jason Tatum has, but Kemba Walker, he's dealt with injuries. He's been up and down. Jaylen Brown has had his best season of his career, and then he goes down with injury. This Boston team simply cannot beat Brooklyn. They've got way too much firepower. Kevin Durant, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Blake Griffin. I love Jeff Green coming off the bench. This is a mismatch. No question about it. I'd be shocked if Boston got 2 games. I think the series is a sweep. I think the Nets sweep the Celtics and move on to the second round. Next up, this is going to be crazy. Miami Heat 6 seed, the defending Eastern Conference champions, taking on the 3 seed Milwaukee Bucks. Now, obviously, the last time both teams, last year they played in the second round, conference semifinals. I didn't like Milwaukee all year as a championship contender, but even I said, yeah, they'll go 6. They'll beat Miami. And Jimmy Butler and them guys said, no. They won that series in a gentleman's sweep, 5 games. The only game that Milwaukee won was a game 4 when they were already down 3-0. So Miami's going to come in with that confidence. And once again, similar to last year, playing with house money. Nobody's expecting Miami, as good as they are, to win the Eastern Conference. I mean, nobody's expecting. On Milwaukee's end, different story. Not that people are necessarily expecting them to win the East, But they got better in the offseason. Obviously, the biggest thing they did is they extended Giannis, which I didn't think they'd do. I thought he was gone after this year. They extended him. Good for him. Good for the Bucks. They added Drew Holiday, which I love Drew Holiday as one of the better defensive guards in this league. He can give you 20. Obviously Chris Middleton, who has had his playoff struggles. I am concerned about him in this series. You got guys like Bobby Portis. You got PJ Tucker, who they added at the trade deadline. This is a very, very good Bucks team. I think if they lose this series, Mike Budenholzer is going to lose his job, and here's why. Because Budenholzer's first year, they got to the Eastern Conference Finals and lost to Toronto. His second year, they got to the second round and lost to Miami in 5 games. You can't go out in the first round because that's indicate, oh, you're going backwards. You go Eastern Conference Finals and then second round and then possibly the first round. Like that can't happen if you're Bud. So, and I don't think he's a championship coach. I think this series goes the distance. I think it goes 7 games. It's the best series of the first round. I'm going to take Milwaukee slightly. They win game 7 at home. Them having home court advantage obviously helps. The fact that this is not in a bubble like it was last year, I think the Bucks win a great series in 7 games. And then let's go to, this is going to be an interesting one. You got the 5-seed Atlanta Hawks taking on the 4-seed New York Knicks. Who saw this coming? New York is in the playoffs. They're the 4-seed. Julius Randle is going to be the runaway most improved player. I think Tom Thibodeau is clearly, no disrespect to Monty Williams or Quinn Snyder, I think Thibodeau is absolutely coach of the year. This Knicks team went from the 12th seed last year to the 4th seed. They didn't just get to the playoffs, which we would have considered that a success, certainly if you're a New York Knicks fan. They're the 4th seed. They got home court advantage in the first round. Like, nobody saw this coming. And they are an excellent defensive team, which is no shock considering that Thibs is one of the best defensive coaches in basketball. You got Derrick Rose has been excellent off the bench. This is a very, very good New York Knicks team. Not a championship contender. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves here. But in no disrespect to the Atlanta Hawks, Trae Young, Nate McMillan deserves an extension. Since he's come in as the new head coach, Atlanta's won, I think, 27-10. So they've been a great basketball team since they let go of Lloyd Pierce, inserted Nate McMillan in as the, at least for now, the interim head coach. I think he should be the full-time head coach. Indiana should have never fired him last year. Atlanta was a cool story. I think it's over in 5 games. I think because the Knicks, keep this in mind, Madison Square Garden is going to be rocking. You're going to have 13,000. I think I even read as many as 15,000 fans in that arena. I would assume most of those people are vaccinated. It's going to be a crazy playoff atmosphere because, look, they haven't been in the playoffs, I believe, in 8 seasons, and they haven't been to the second round in 9 seasons. So this is going to be this is some of the biggest games the Knicks have played in nearly a decade. I think they come in with that juice. Tom Thibodeau is more experienced in the playoffs than the opposing coach, Nate McMillan. So I think this is over in 5. Knicks win in 5 games and move on to the second round, continuing what has been the shocking story of the NBA as far as individual teams. So now let's go to the West. Starting off with the 1 seed, Utah Jazz, taking on who I believe will be the 8 seed, my Golden State Warriors. I believe they take care of business. They win easily tonight against the Memphis Grizzlies. Steph does his thing. He goes off for 40 plus, and they will beat Memphis tonight and get to the playoffs and continue. And Steph will continue what I believe is absolutely an MVP season. This is an interesting one. Golden State actually won the season series. They played 3 times. Utah obliterated Golden State in the first meeting. Golden State won the next 2, including one last week. So I think psychologically, Golden State is not scared of Utah, okay? Because you got guys, I read a stat today. Steph Curry has played the exact amount of playoff games as the entire Utah Jazz roster combined, 112. So that's, you want to talk about experience. A first-round series where you are not going to be favored is not going to face Steph, Draymond, Kevon Looney, Steve Kerr. This is not going to phase them. I think Utah, this is what's interesting. Donovan Mitchell is not fully healthy. Mike Conley, once again in the playoffs, is not fully healthy. Rudy Gobert has never been good in the playoffs. And you got Golden State playing with house money, and Utah, where those fans in Salt Lake City, they expected them to at least get to the conference finals. That's what they expect. Like, y'all need to get to the Western Conference Finals. I'm going for it. Golden State's going to win this series in 7 games. It's going to be back and forth, crazy. Steph's going to have big games. Donovan Mitchell's going to have big games, I believe, at home. I think it goes the distance. It goes 7 games. Golden State wins on the road in Utah, in Salt Lake City. And as the 8th seed, very reminiscent of the We Believe team back in 2007, the OGs, Stack Jack, Matt Barnes, Monte Ellis, Baron Davis. But as Draymond said, this ain't no We Believe team. We got bleeping Steph Curry. We got Steph Curry. This ain't no We Believe. We got a guy who should be a 3-time MVP. Golden State will upset Utah in the first round. They'll win against Memphis tonight, and then they will go to Utah, upset the Jazz, and get to the second round. It will go 7 games. Golden State will win, though. Let's go to the defending NBA champion Los Angeles Lakers. They're the 7 seed, taking on the 2 seed Phoenix Suns. And if you're Phoenix, you got to be saying, you got to be kidding me. We're the 2 seed. Chris Paul is in, he's not a finalist for MVP, but he had an MVP caliber season. Devin Booker was great. DeAndre Ayton and Jay Crowder and Bridges, and Monty Williams is a finalist for Coach of the Year. Congrats to him. And they're like, we did all that, second best record in the NBA, to face the defending champions in the first round. So, Phoenix has got to be saying, man, you got to be kidding me right now. Here's what I believe. Chris Paul is going to have those guys ready to go. He's going to have them ready to go. If I'm a Lakers fan, and I talked about this yesterday, I am concerned for Anthony Davis. He's clearly not 100%. Neither is LeBron. But it's just like Tom. I don't bet against LeBron to the extent of like you never bet against Tom Brady. But he's one of those athletes. It's like, man, you'll never bet against LeBron James. Okay, the man's been to, what has it been, 9 finals in 10 years. I mean, it's ridiculous. The Lakers are the favorites to win the series. I think this is the first time a 7 seed has been favored to win in the first round in like 30 years. So that's certainly what makes this series compelling. I believe that the Lakers win this series. They do it in 6. They close the series out at the Staples Center in 6 games. I know there's been talk of LeBron possibly sitting out game 2. I don't think he'll even consider that, with the ankle injury. 3 rims, 2 rims, 1 rim. Lakers going to win this series. Phoenix will make it competitive. They will make it interesting. I think Devin Booker being in the playoffs for the first time, I'm really not concerned about him. Let's keep in mind, this is a guy who dropped 70 at a game one time a few years back against the Celtics, and a guy who's, along with many NBA players, has trained with the late, great Kobe Bryant. So he's not going to be afraid of the moment. Obviously, CP3 is going to be afraid of the moment going against his banana boat buddy in LeBron James. It's exciting. I got the Lakers winning in 6 games and getting to the second round. Let's go to the 6 seed Portland Trailblazers taking on the 3 seed Denver Nuggets. This is a fun one because you got Portland. Dame is Dame. Dame shows up in the playoffs. Dame is a really good to great regular season player and he elevates his game. He gets better in the playoffs, which is the makings of a Hall of Fame player and a great player. CJ McCollum's come back and played well. I believe Portland has won 10 of its last 12 games to close out the season. Easily could have won 11 of the last 12. There was you could argue a ticky-tack foul at the end of that Suns Trailblazers game a couple weeks back. Certainly, would have given Portland a shot to have even more momentum going into the playoffs. And then you have Denver, who last year came back from 3-1 on Utah in the first round, shocked the world and came back from 3-1 down against the Clippers, and then obviously lost to the Lakers in the conference finals in 5 games. So this is a team that's seen in the last 2 postseasons. Think about this. This is kind of crazy. In the last 2 postseasons, the Nuggets have played 4 Game 7s. They played 4 Game 7s. So they're battle tested. They're ready to go. Obviously, the loss of Jamal Murray is huge because he was the Nuggets' best player in the bubble last year and in the playoffs. Jokic is going to be ready to go. Who's going to come alongside of him? Is it, obviously Michael Porter Jr.'s stepped up since Jamal Murray got hurt. But who are going to be the other guys that step up And who's going to stop the offensive firepower of Portland? You got, obviously, Dame and CJ. They're going to do their thing. You've got guys like Norman Powell, who's really good offensively. Enes Kanter's, tough to stop down low. Yusuf Nurkic is finally healthy going into the playoffs. You got Melo. So this is a Portland team that's got as much firepower as anybody not named Brooklyn. So that they got a lot of. They're not great defensively. That's why I am concerned. Can Nurkic? Kanter doesn't play defense. Can Nurkic neutralize Nikola Jokic? That's the number one question. I'm going to take Portland in an upset. I think they win this series in 7 games in Denver. Remember, they beat Denver in Game 7 a couple years back, and Denver had Jamal Murray. Obviously, they had Jokic. They had a deeper roster than they have this year. So I think it goes 7. I'm going to take Portland to win it and advance to the second round. Damian Lillard's had, once again, another amazing season. And finally, another rematch of a playoff series from 2020. You've got the 5-seed Dallas Mavericks taking on the 4-seed Los Angeles Clippers, who were scared of the Los Angeles Lakers, no question about it. Tanked the last 2 games against the 2 worst teams in basketball, the Rockets and the Thunder, to try and avoid the Lakers as long as they could. This is another very interesting series. Dallas has no pressure. I think Luka has a little bit of pressure because it's like, okay, this is 3rd year. We expected you to be an MVP. I actually picked Luka to win MVP this year. We kind of expected you to win or to at least be in contention for MVP. That didn't really come to fruition. This is a big series for Luka Doncic, I believe. I think he shows up. Something that I think is very, very interesting. Luka, obviously he's one of the best scorers in basketball. He's one of the better closers when you look at his numbers in the league. The Clippers are the second worst team in the NBA, not among playoff teams. They are the second worst team in all of basketball in the last 2 minutes of close games. And that's with Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Rajon Rondo. Okay, that's a deep roster. And, obviously I like Ty Lue a lot as a head coach. I think we get the exact same result as last year. Paul George once again struggles in the playoffs, but Kawhi does just enough. Rondo is playoff Rondo. I think he absolutely – I think the trade Rondo for Lou Williams was, good on the Clippers. No disrespect whatsoever to Sweet Lou or Lemon Pepper Lou, as he was nicknamed going into the playoffs last year. But Rondo is battle-tested. He's got 2 rings with the 2 most iconic franchises in basketball. The moment will definitely not be too big for him. He holds guys accountable. I think if there's no Rajon Rondo, I'd pick Dallas to win the series. I really would. I'm going to take the Clippers to win this series in 6 games. Porzingis' health is always up and down, so you don't know if he's going to play all 6 games. If this does go 6, I think Luka's going to be great, just like he was last year. We'll have a couple close games in there. But I'm going to take the Clippers to win this series in 6 games and get to the second round. So just to round up before we close out the show, I got Philadelphia beating Washington in 5. I've got Brooklyn sweeping with the only sweep of the first round of the Boston Celtics. I've got the Bucks in the best series of the first round. I think the Bucks win in 7 games over the Miami Heat. I've got the Knicks in 5, a gentleman's sweep over the Atlanta Hawks. I've got my Golden State Warriors winning tonight, getting the 8th seed and beating and upsetting the Utah Jazz in 7 games. I've got the defending champion Los Angeles Lakers beating the 2-seed Phoenix Suns in 6 games. I've got the Blazers as the 6th seed upsetting the 3-seed Denver Nuggets in 7. And I've got the Clippers in an exciting 6-game series winning over the Dallas Mavericks. So let's see. Let me check. So that would make, for a second round, I actually have 3. The 6, this is weird. Out west, I've got the 6, 7, and 8 seed all winning their series. That's wacky. So I got 1 seed, 2 seed, and 3 seed going down in round 1 in the Western Conference. I call it the Wild Wild West for a reason. It's wild. Okay, it's going to be crazy. No series is a given in the first round. I wouldn't bet any of these series if I were a gambler, which I'm not, but I would not bet any of these series in the Western Conference. So that would make in the second round, Philadelphia would play New York in the second round. They would be Sixers, Knicks, and then you would have a series which I am dying to see. Brooklyn against Milwaukee. I think the two superstars, KD and Giannis, neutralize each other. And then where do we go from there? Because James Harden has never been a great playoff performer. Chris Middleton on the other end has not been a good playoff performer. I so hope we get Bucks Nets. I'm pretty sure we will. Certainly the Nets will advance. I hope the Bucks beat the Heat because I want to see that in the second round. So we'll have Sixers, Knicks, and then the Nets and the Bucks getting to the second round out east. And then in the West, let's see, that would be the Clippers taking on my Warriors. Don't like that at all for Golden State. And it would be the Lakers taking on the Blazers in the second round. So this is going to be a crazy postseason. Cannot wait for it. It starts tomorrow. So with that is all the time we have for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Anchor, as well as wherever you listen to your podcast. Thank you for watching live on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. We'll be back Monday, as always, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, to talk about a lot of playoff basketball. We got 8 games, 8 game ones this weekend to start these playoff series. I'm sure we'll have some game twos to talk about, to go into on Monday. So cannot wait. NBA playoffs. Here we go. Love the NBA playoffs. We all know the regular season don't matter, but the playoffs is what it's all about. It's all about everybody chasing that ring. Everybody chasing the Larry O.B., as the owner of the Los Angeles Clippers, Steve Ballmer, once referred to it as. So it's going to be fun. Going to be a crazy 2 months. Can't wait for it. We're going to have more fans in the arenas than we've had in a while. So cannot wait. We're going to have the fans back there. I know I've said cannot wait a million times, but I cannot wait. Hope everybody has a great weekend. Enjoy some playoff basketball. Enjoy some time with your family. Do what you got to do. Continue to stay safe out there. God bless you all. Peace out.